What is going on, everybody? We've only got one more episode of Daredevil Born Again Season 2. So today we are breaking down, of course, the penultimate episode, episode 7. And this episode feels like the board finally getting set for that finale. We got Karen locked up. We got Fisk tightening his grip on New York. We got Bullseye trying to play the hero. And we got Jessica Jones dropping in once again. Let's just be honest, not as much as we wanted, but it's okay. They're saving her for next week. And we got one of the coldest final courtroom entrances that Matt Murdock has done in a long time. So without further ado, let's talk about it. So this episode picks up right after last week's cliffhanger. Karen Page is captured by Powell in the AVTF. And Karen is not just being arrested, she's being humiliated. She gets processed, strip searched, and thrown into a holding cell like she's some violent criminal instead of one of the only people in the city still trying to expose the truth. And then we get one of the best scenes of the episode. Karen is meeting with Fisk. He comes to visit her, and I love this really because Karen has always been one of the few people who can stand in front of Fisk and not completely fold. And he comes in trying to intimidate her, of course. He's got the power, he's got the system, and he's even got all the cops, as we already know, and the courts, which we will see soon because her trial's coming up the very next day. But Karen still looks him dead in the eyes and the face and says, "You're scared." And that line where she tells him, I've never seen you scared before, I kind of like it. That is Karen Page right there through and through. I feel like it's still hammering home that this is still the show that people know and love. I don't really get the complaints for this season, but we'll get into that with the full review I'll be doing next week. So subscribe for that. But as we see, Karen's not bulletproof. She's not super strong. She doesn't have armor, but emotionally, she might be one of the toughest people in this entire universe. And we see him grab her neck and, strangle her a little bit, just try to scare her a little bit. But he's not going to do anything to her. And Fisk doesn't scare her, of course, the way that he wants to. And then from there, the episode then cuts over to Jessica Jones. And I love seeing Kristen Ritter back. I talked about it briefly last week, but not enough. I feel like the show continues to use Jessica in a weird way, but I actually kind of like it so far. I get a lot of people want her a little bit more, but like I said, I feel like we'll see next week. We'll see. She shows up, she gives attitude, she gets information, and then just disappears again. It's great to have her back, but like I said, it also feels like the writers are scared to fully let her do what she wants to do. I don't know if that's because they're saving stuff for next season, whatever. But she interrogates Mr. Charles, and of course, the attack with her daughter, she's a little pissed off, and we finally do get confirmation that Jessica is fully with Luke. Danielle is their daughter, and comic fans are very excited because we know that Luke Cage is officially a hero for hire, which is fun to just kind of point out there. And according to Charles, he is overseas doing the Lord's work, like I said, heroes for hire, which immediately raises a million questions. What is he doing overseas? Are we ever going to see any of that next season of some stuff that they did? Is he fighting some secret war? Is this connected to Madripoor? Is Sharon Carter involved? Is some power broker situation? The episode really just gives us just enough to speculate, but not enough to actually know what's going on. And with only one episode left in this season, I don't really know how much of that's getting answered till next season, because we do know, because I don't even want to call them leaks at this point. They film everything like just fully outside, so I feel like it's on their side. But like, if you haven't known, it cat's kind of out of the bag. They're all coming back next season. All the defenders are. So I'm sure that they're setting this stuff up to, for next season. But anyways, after this conversation, she just kind of leaves again after a conversation with Matt and Cherry, and then she ends up just leaving. Once again, just kind of not showing back up this whole episode. And I just feel like I said, you bring back Jessica Jones, Luke Cage being referenced, daughter being involved, there's a CIA guy running around. I feel like she's kind of just now being used as a plot delivery system, but like I said, we'll leave that there for a full review. After they have a little run-in with each other, we then see Matt go to Bullseye, and this is where things get interesting, because Matt tells Dex that the way to balance the scales is not by taking another life, it's by saving one, and that life is Governor McCaffrey. Now, there's something really fascinating about Matt trying to use Bullseye as a weapon for good, because on paper that sounds insane. This is the man who, as we know, killed Foggy Nelson, and the man who destroyed Matt's life, and this is the man who has caused both him and Karen so much pain, and multiple people, honestly. And yet Matt is so desperate, so cornered, and so committed to not becoming Fisk that he tries to turn Bullseye into a protector instead of an executioner. The problem is, once again, it's Bullseye, but we see that he does save her at the end of the episode, and he kills the attacker. So now you're kind of sitting there thinking, you're like, hey, I kind of see the vision there, brother. But I don't know if this counts because, yes, he saved a life, but he also clearly took one. So does he get half credit? I don't know. But Bullseye, as we see, has, we see him smiling, still a little crazy when he's leaving that building. And I know a lot of people had speculations about where that scene was taking place, but I definitely wouldn't have thought it was him saving somebody, so it's good to see that. Now, we cut to the next scene. We get a return of Brett Mahoney. I kind of skimmed over this previously, but I kind of want to backtrack because he does come back. He helps Karen get out briefly to come see Matt. You start feeling that relief. You remember this guy was one of the good ones back in the day, in a city where the police are compromised, the courts are compromised, and Fisk, people are everywhere. Brett Mahoney shows up and kind of shows that there's someone there to open a window in a burning building. He lets Karen briefly get out so she can meet Matt. In a beautiful alleyway scene, if I must say. So I actually like the lighting a lot in this shot. And I think that Karen and Matt, we clearly see that they have been through hell and it's not over yet because she goes back to her cell. They say their goodbyes, but they do have a plan. But they don't know if the plan's going to work. Now, the episode is really smartly written because they want you to think that his plan is potentially to kill Fisk. Maybe he's pushed to the edge. What did he get Bullseye to do? And I feel like as we keep seeing as this show's being done, that's not what Matt does, and I do love that because this episode understands something very important about Daredevil as a character, that Matt Murdock is at his most dangerous, not when he's throwing those punches, but when he walks into a courtroom. And finally get a really great courtroom scene because he comes in clutch. He shows up. But before we cover that whole scene, I do want to get into Heather. I haven't really touched on her in most of these breakdowns because most of her scenes have been kind of just whatever. We kind of see that they're setting her up to be Muse or whatever like that. We've speculated for sure. But we know that Fisk knows that she stole jewelry during Vanessa's wake, but instead of punishing her, he gives her the other half of the set. And it's very weird, very kind of intimate. It feels like Fisk is trying to create another emotional anchor because Vanessa's gone. But like I said, with one episode left, Heather's role is still kind of confusing to the plot because the show keeps pointing to something darker with her. Like I said, because of set leaks, I'm not going to ignore that. Clearly we're seeing what's going on. But it's still, though, as far as writing goes, I really wonder where they're fully going with her character. And this time, Heather, I feel like is, not even trying to be fair whenever we have her Karen scene, for example. She even slaps her in this episode towards the end. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and finish up here, going back to the courtroom plot. So it's the move that really works well with this character. He can beat you in the streets and he can beat your ass in the courtroom. Of course, his victory does not last long because later the AVTF tries to kill Matt in a parking garage and they do indeed shoot him. And so Matt is now a big gamble. He may have saved Karen temporarily, but it really has to, now put a bigger target on his back and other people. And again, I really like the dynamic between Charlie Cox and Krista Ritter here because they have a scene also later on in a church that I really liked a lot. And now I want to talk about elephant in the room, the darkest part of the episode. Daniel Blake and BB are Earrich? Is it Earrich? Can't remember anymore. But anyways, BB has been exposed clearly as being the leak, the mole. And I really just have not loved her character because I just feel like while she's doing a good thing, she's not doing it to a good person. We already have pretty much known from the jump, Daniel keeps telling her, hey, if you're leaking this stuff, you're going to get me killed. And clearly she hasn't cared enough about him to ignore that or to stop doing that. And so I just really personally feel like it was fair if he would have taken her in that building. I know that's awful to say. I know it is. But it's just the whole time sitting there thinking, it's like, even now, even down to the end of it, he is still such a great person. He's not going to take her in this building. And we see, that Buck is wanting to kill her. He wants him to bring her there. And of course, he can't do so. And that makes his death hit harder in a different way because it's not some huge superhero reveal. It's just very tragic. You see Buck is hesitating. And in that moment, I actually had some sighs of relief. I was like, oh, maybe he's not going to do it. But of course he does. And what's interesting, like I said, is that Buck is upset by it. He, of course, still does it. But that tells you everything. I feel like Buck has enough humanity to feel the weight of what he's doing, but not enough to clearly stop. And that might actually make him even scarier of a character because he knows he's becoming a monster and he keeps choosing it anyways. And by the end of this episode, everything is fully set up for the finale. We have Karen being on trial. Matt has revealed himself in the defense and he's been shot. Fisk is losing control but becoming more dangerous. Bullseye somewhere between redemption and relapse. Jessica and Luke Cage's world has been cracked open. BB's now on the run because Daniel let her go, and now Daniel's dead because of that. And the AVTF is willing to shoot Matt Murdock in a parking garage. So the big question now is, can this season actually stick the landing? Because there's a lot on the table. We still have Fisk control over New York now having to be rescinded, Karen's trial, Matt's injury, Bullseye's role, Jessica's family situation, Luke Cage being overseas. Do you think we'll even maybe see a cameo by the end of this? I know they're in next season, but do you think maybe they'll show it? Mr. Charles, whatever operation he's running, Heather's entire storyline, BB surviving, Buck's next move, Governor McCaffrey trying to remove Fisk. I feel like there's a lot in the finale, and I don't really know how long the finale is, so either this finale is meant to be packed, or we're ending on some major cliffhangers for season 3, but thank God they are filming season 3, so we do know they're going to get one. But overall, I really enjoyed this episode. I think it did have some issues. Jessica, like I said, still feels kind of underused. Heather's storyline, I feel like, is probably the messiest part of this season, and some of the plot mechanics are a little questionable, but the Karen and Fisk scene is great. Matt entering the courtroom was fantastic. I loved it, and Bullseye saving the governor was chaotic in the best way. And I really like Brett Mahoney's, return. I think Daniel's death really gave a lot of emotional punches for the episode, because he was personally one of my favorite characters, and that shit hit hard. It was like Foggy all over again. I really, like, Daniel grew on me, kind of like Buck. Like, he really grew on me. And I think that's why it was hard for Buck to do it. But anyways, comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on this episode. I will have another breakdown for next week for the finale and theories about season 3 and stuff like that. Just stuff that we know. And then I will also be uploading a full review with a score and stuff like that. Just what I overall thought about the season and getting into some more details like that. I don't usually cover these breakdowns. So if you enjoyed that, like, subscribe for more, and I will catch you guys on the next one.